Hi Chair, it is now 7 o'clock and we are ready to start the meeting.
Thank you, Mike, and good evening, everyone. Welcome to the fourth meeting of the COVID-19 Response and Recovery Scrutiny Panel. We have many attendees this bonfire night. I will begin introductions in a short while. The meeting is being streamed live on YouTube, so good evening to any interested viewers that may be viewing the meeting. Can I just ask for patience should the meeting move at a slightly slower pace? This will allow us to work through the agenda and deal with any technical issues that may arise. To ensure audio for this meeting is as clear as possible, we'll be muting all microphones as a default setting to keep background noise to a minimum. Obviously, this is needed especially tonight, as I'm sure, like me, the sound of fireworks is prevalent. When wishing to speak, I would ask attendees if they could raise their hands and wait to be invited to speak by myself. Your microphone will then be unmuted and you'll be able to speak. Panel members are asked to vote by raising their hands to indicate if they are in favour, against, or wishing to abstain from the motion. Panel, I'd like to go to agenda item 1, and this is to receive apologies for absence. Can I ask if there's been any apologies submitted?
No, Chairman, we haven't had any apologies submitted.
Thank you, Lynn. Great to see a full house then. Agenda item number 2. This item is to consider any declarations of disclosable pecuniary or personal interests and non-disclosable pecuniary or other interests. Can I ask if there's been any declarations, Lynn? Or anybody, sorry.
I haven't received any declarations prior to the meeting, Chairman.
Okay, thank you very much, Lynn. We're going to move straight on to item number 3. And this item is to approve as a correct record the minutes of the last meeting held on the 6th of October 2020. Can I have a mover and a seconder? Okay, Councillor Blagdon would like to move. Can I have a seconder, please? Well, I'll second it. Okay, Councillor Smallridge, thank you very much. A lot of work goes on between the meetings. A lot of work goes on between the meetings in a fast-changing world, and I'd like to introduce my Vice Chairman, Councillor Jim Blagdon, who will give us a précis of activity since the last meeting. Jim?
Good evening, everyone. Nice to see you all looking so happy and smiling. I'd just briefly like to update you on the ongoing work of this panel. After the last meeting on Tuesday the 6th of October, we made a number of recommendations to Cabinet. I'm not going to repeat them all, but you'll find them on page 12 of your papers. Both the Chair and I presented these recommendations to Cabinet on Tuesday the 13th of October, and I'm pleased to say that the Cabinet accepted every one of our 7 recommendations. Significant progress has been made on one of the specific proposals, that being looking at options to use all of the ring-face reopening High Street Fund. Since the meeting, the Chairman and I have met with Sarah Daniel, Trevor Middleton and Councillor David Martin, the Cabinet members responsible for our town centres. One of the issues raised at our last meeting was residents' concern about using parking meters in our town centre car parks. Lots of concern about pressing buttons, if you remember. Whilst the council digital transformation programme is ongoing, it was felt many residents simply couldn't access the app due to a variety of issues, mainly lack of smartphone. Therefore, we sent Trevor away to look at the options. For providing and sanitising stations next to our parking meters, we have now identified a product that is being road tested. Each station will be a foot pedal controlled. This will mean residents will be able to wash their hands before and after purchasing a ticket. We have identified 13 locations throughout the district. This will be funded via the Reopening High Street Fund. We also purchased a number of non-slip 300 times 300mm floor signs, reminding residents to keep safe distance. Finally, Mr. Chairman, our Spread in Ashfield Matters is launching the consultation over COVID People's Memorial is hitting the doorsteps on December the 3rd. This will be accompanied by a full communication plan, including letters to schools, community groups, and the many other organisations across the district. It is hoped that our January meeting that will be in a position to formally look at the replies. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Jim. As we said when this committee was set up, we need to keep our working flexible. As of last Friday, we were preparing to go into Tier 3 lockdown. Government leaks started to chime last Friday night, and duly the Prime Minister announced a full national lockdown on Saturday, which has started today. I am keen, however, that the main point of tonight's meeting is to listen to the good variety of local businesses, big and small, that we have here tonight. Therefore, panel, I'm going to suggest that we move item 5 first, due to the new restrictions in place from today. They have been attached to the agenda digitally as an addendum. Can I have a show of hands for those in favour of making the change to this agenda? Just raise your hands if you for. Anyone against? Okay, well, that's clearly carried. Thank you very much, panel. Agenda item 4. I will now, so that now becomes agenda item 4. I will now ask Shane to provide an overview before bringing in Ruth Dennis to discuss the latest guidance and restrictions updates. Shane.
Thank you very much, Chair, and good evening, everyone. I'm just going to talk briefly on the agenda. I know the Chair has made some reference to it up to now. I just want to avoid any confusion. Obviously, as you all know, or you may be aware, this agenda was published last Wednesday, and as the Chair alluded to, we were under the impression that we were entering Tier 3 last Friday at that point. Obviously, since the agenda was published, and since a lot of the invitations have gone out to you, to the guests we have tonight, the situation's changed, and we've since been put into a national lockdown as of today. So with that change in circumstance, as the Chair said, we've circulated an addendum which includes, I think it's like a 14-page document of guidance from the government. We're hoping and we're anticipating that more guidance will be released over the coming weeks to better, help us communicate with you businesses going forward. We've also got a business recovery support report. This includes information from the Senior Economic Development Officer, Paul Stoppard, and that was requested by members at the previous meeting of the panel. That goes into some detail on the work of the Business Support Hub and how we'll be working with local businesses throughout the next months and years, really. And finally, I just want to say, before we begin, and I just want to extend an early thank you to all the businesses that have shown an interest in getting involved this evening. We're really pleased as a panel to have that, and it's really important that this happens, and it's essential to the panel's role, and it's one of the main reasons it's been established by the council. So we're really looking forward to hearing your views tonight and throughout the meeting, and also throughout the coming months and the future work of the panel. It doesn't just stop tonight, but I think tonight is a good starting point. So I'll pass it back to you now, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Shane. And you're absolutely right. We're delighted. It's absolutely key to the work that we do, that we do communicate and listen to the opinions and views of businesses, because they've stuck through us through thick and thin. I'd like to bring in Ruth. Ruth is the Council Strategic Lead for COVID-19 recovery. Ruth.
Thank you, Chair. For our business colleagues joining us tonight, I'm Director of Legal and Governance and Monitoring Officer at the Council. But as part of that role, I've been taking a strategic lead in relation to the COVID-19 response and recovery programme that we coordinate at a county level. It sounds behind me like there's a fantastic fireworks display going on in Kirkby, so I'm not sure where that is, but you might be able to hear it going on. So I'm sorry if that does start to impact on the sound quality. But as Shane's just said, we obviously went into national lockdown from 12 this morning. The regulations that underpin that national lockdown were made available in draft late on Tuesday and were debated through Parliament yesterday. So they were literally put in at the last minute for introduction this morning. The addendum circulated to members is essentially the government's guidance that underpins those sort of more detailed legal regulations. I'm not going to go through those in detail, but obviously from today through to the 2nd of December, we are being told to stay at home and only leave our homes for specific purposes, which is set out in the regulations, to avoid meeting people we don't live with, again, except for specific purposes. And also the regulations close certain businesses and venues, but at the same time also keep some of those businesses and venues open. The detail around all of that is set out in the regulations and in detail in the guidance. I'm not going to go through that line by line, other than to say there are quite a lot of exceptions in terms of when you can leave your property. That's obviously for things like work, if you can't work from home, for school purposes, for volunteering, for caring for vulnerable people, etc. And there are some other exceptions which still allow for gatherings to take place. The most notable one of which is there are some provisions to allow for Remembrance Sunday events to continue this weekend. Along with the guidance, both the police and the local authority, as part of those regulations, now have specific enforcement powers to ensure that people are sticking to those rules, and if they are contravening them, we now have powers as a local authority, and the police have additional powers as well to deal with those contraventions. So, for example, if people contravene the stay-at-home message or the not gathering in a public place message, then there are fixed penalty provisions that the police can impose. And they start at a fine, for example, at about £200 for the first FPN. And they then multiply up if multiple FPNs are served to a maximum of £6,400. So there are now quite considerable consequences that the government have put in place if people contravene the stay-at-home message. And that's also true of contraventions for the business restrictions or the business closures, and contraventions of those can also attract a fixed penalty notice. And in that case, that ranges from £1,000 through to £10,000. So there is quite a lot of information contained in the guidance, which obviously supplements the regulations. We are trying to still understand the implications of that. And as Shane said, there's lots of guidance still coming out around some of those specific exceptions that we'll see in the next few days. From a council point of view, the panel has heard before about my involvement in the multi-agency meetings. They're continuing as we obviously go through into a new phase of lockdown. And I had one such meeting this morning. The other more detailed cell groups, we've called them cells, they're continuing to meet, and officers across the council are continuing to participate in those meetings and obviously take actions forward so that we can provide our services still during the following 4-week period. The final thing that I just want to give a little bit of information on, which is pertinent, I think, in terms of the visitors we have on our meeting tonight, is in relation to the business grant support that obviously has been announced. Pete Hudson, our Chief Finance Officer, has provided me with an update. Essentially, I think yesterday there was a national virtual meeting held at which we were advised that more information will be provided early next week to enable councils to finalise their grant schemes and launch the application processes. This is obviously made slightly more difficult and complicated because of the transition that we've had in the last 2 weeks, going from tier 2 to tier 3, and obviously now into lockdown and the funding implications of that. A scheme has been drafted for Nottinghamshire, and that will be finalised as soon as we have the final set of guidance and information from the government, which, as I say, we should have by early next week. We are hoping to make the application process as simple as possible, and to produce an online application form for that. We have started to develop that, but we can't conclude and finish off that development until we obviously know the full details from government. But obviously that piece of work is already underway. And we are hoping that if the information is provided by early next week, we will launch the scheme as soon as possible after that. And the application process should start between Wednesday and Friday next week. And we'll make sure that all that information is put on the council's website and via social media as soon as we're able to do so. There are obviously businesses in the hospitality, accommodation, leisure and non-essential retail that were directed to close, and those impacted significantly through tier 2 and tier 3 will be able to apply for assistance. There's also a discretionary element for those significantly impacted across different sectors, and that may include applications being possible for those who are self-employed and home-based workers. But again, that's information that we're still pulling together based on the guidance. Once an application has been confirmed and approved, I'm told by Pete that payment will be processed through the automated back system within a 3 working day period. So I think, Chair, that's important for obviously and relevant for our speakers tonight. But again, there is still a lot of information that we're waiting for from government before we can actually press go on that process and that scheme. I don't intend to sort of go through anything in more detail. So I do think, Chair, that you're wanting to focus on hearing from our business colleagues rather than me talking about the regulations, Chair. But obviously, if there's any questions that members want me to answer, I can either do that now or later on.
Thank you, Ruth. I appreciate that. I mean, it must be really difficult, and I pay tribute to the council officers because as of Friday, as I said before, we were preparing to go into tier 3, and then everything changes overnight, and it must be really frustrating because let's face it, the information coming from the government is about as clear as the American presidential elections. I mean, it must be so frustrating, and I think you're all doing an excellent job. And I do welcome the discretionary element of what you were saying, because one of the things that I felt was that under the previous tranche of business grants, sole traders were unable, because of the property on cost element, they were falling through the cracks and they were left alone. And I particularly welcome that. So I'm going to go through the panel members now, and then because as I say, we are very keen to move to the main item on the agenda, which is to hear from our local businesses. I'd like to ask Councillor Grounds. Dale, have you got anything, any questions that you'd like to ask Ruth?
No, Chair, no questions.
Thank you, Councillor Grounds. Councillor Wilkinson, Caroline.
Good evening, Chairman. Yes, I have a question to ask. I've actually written everything down this evening so I don't waffle. Can I ask whether the council has any plans to provide any extra resources to police social distancing and to assist retailers providing essential services outside our town centres? For example, Stanton Hill, these traders are feeling ignored and frustrated when they see so much of our resources going into Sutton Town Centre.
Thank you, Caroline. Ruth, do you want to pick that up? Or Teresa, maybe?
Chair, I think Teresa may be more suited to answering that question in better detail than I can, Chair.
Okay, Teresa.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome to our business community. It's nice to see so many familiar faces on the call this evening. Thank you, Chair. Just a quick one with the reopening of the High Streets Fund that we've received. We have started the process of recruiting to these. And I'm pleased to announce that we have recruited 2 environmental health officers that will do the enforcement side to support our town centres and the wider conurbations. And we're just in the process of recruiting 6 COVID information officers and a senior officer that's already in post. So we'll have 8 officers plus the senior that will be working across Ashfield to support the business community in implementing some of the regulations. That will not only be giving information and guidance, but we will have an enforcement element to that as well.
Brilliant. I'm sure that'll be welcome. Stay in places like Stanton Hill and Huffwaite and Selston. Brilliant. Thank you, Teresa. I'd like to bring in now Councillor Jim Blagdon, the Vice Chairman. Jim. Just unmute yourself, Jim. There we are.
Just a comment, Chairman, and Hucknall does exist in Ashfield and all. Everybody seems to gloss around that. And we have businesses in Ashfield, and it would be nice to hear some of them at some time or other. As usual, our officers have got the fingers on the pulse, Chairman. And as grants are available, they'll be given out. And I just can't thank them enough for being so fast to react to what's going off, and so well done to them all.
Yeah, I'm sure Councillor Blagdon that the council are well aware that Hucknall exists, and you know, that's why they've been invested in the market. That's why so much money is being poured this year into Titchfield Park, etc. And so just to pull you up on that one slightly, Councillor Smallridge, have you got any comments you'd like to make?
Yeah, nothing at the moment. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, I'd like to now ask Councillor Kevin Rostance.
Thank you, Chair. Can you hear me now?
Oh, we can hear you.
You can hear me? Yes, it's a general question, Chair. You'll probably be aware that the Labour Party and the Conservative Party have both issued similar campaign guidance during the COVID crisis, and no leafleting, no door canvassing, which I'm sure you would agree is a very sensible approach. Being the lead party, I'm just wondering what the Ashford Independence campaign guidance is during the
well,
COVID.
as you know, Councillor Rostance, I'm an unaligned independent member of this council. I'm not able to answer the question. Let's move on now. So have I covered all panel members?
Sorry, David, I wasn't asking you. I was asking it for the anyone on the committee.
I'm sure that if you send an email to the leader of the council, I'm sure he'd be happy to answer that for you, Councillor.
Sorry.
Was that? Yeah, you finished? Okay, thank you very much. Right, now we're going to move to, have I covered all panel members?
Chair, Councillor Shaw was waving furiously to speak all the way through it. I'm not sure if he's annoyed you, but I'll happily answer Councillor Rostance's point if you want to call me in later as well. About
okay, thank you. Sorry, Dave, we've got that many people on the call today. So is Councillor Shaw
there? Sorry, Chair. It looks like we've lost Councillor Shaw at the moment. We will try and bring him back in. Oh, okay. He's coming back in. Here he is,
okay.
Chair.
Dave, I just wanted to let you know that we weren't ignoring you. Apologies. We've got that many people on the call. It's difficult to scuttle through. So, Councillor Dave Shaw.
Yeah, thanks, Jim. My internet keeps going off, so I do apologise. It's appalling signal. I think the little mouse has decided gone for its tea as the wheel whirls.
There's nothing about you, Dave.
The business support grant, Chair, and the scheme and cost implementations. Is the council going to get refunded from central government about this? And the discretionary element to that particular part of the payment, is it open to fraud? And have we got robust systems in place to actually cover it, Chair?
Okay, does anyone want to pick that one up? I'm just frantically scrolling through. Ruth Dennis.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, the government is providing a pot of funding for the grant payments. I'm not sure that we know whether the exact sum of that at the present moment, but yes, that is going to come from government. From a discretionary grant point of view, yeah, we do have systems in place to check and assess for fraudulent claims, as we did in the first sort of stage of discretionary payments. So we do have systems in place, Councillor Shaw, to reassure you on that. And we've also involved our internal audit as part of a check and a balance on the first stage of discretionary payments that we made as well, to reassure ourselves in terms of what we did the first time round as part of a lessons learned approach. So I am quite comfortable that we've put measures in place around that.
I'm going to bring Councillor Grounds in a minute, but I just wanted to say that one of the great frustrations over this since the last meeting was when the VE Midlands, who are part of Nottinghamshire County Council, wrote without consultation to businesses in Kirkby and businesses in Sutton. I'm not sure whether there was any in Hucknall, but basically wanting to close lay-bys down. And can somebody just confirm the council's opposition to that? Maybe Councillor Zadrozny might be able to do that, and then answer Councillor Rostance's question, and then I'll bring in Councillor Grounds. Jason?
That wasn't my question, Chair. Thank you.
Oh, there you go. See, Dale and I have great minds think alike, even though I suspect his American flag is for a different direction than mine. But on this, we're agreed. Yeah, the council got late notification. Even the county council has got late notification about proposed lay-by closures along Station Street in Kirkby and parts of Outram Street in Sutton. Because they wanted to use those lay-bys as a widening of pavements for people to socially distance, which is bonkers as far as I'm concerned. The district council wrote in full opposition against that. Carol Cooper-Smith, our chief executive, wrote in a number of times and put in a detailed objection. I'm led to believe, although I don't think we've had the formal response, Ruth might tell me, I'm led to believe that the county council has ignored that and are proceeding with the lay-by closures, which I think is probably the final death knell for a few shops here and there, particularly those who have moved to click and collect. But Ruth may have had the final notification. I've not. Very quickly, Chair, to go to Councillor Rostance's little bit of mischief. I'm surprised he's more worried about losing his seat than us recovering from COVID. That's a little bit silly at this state of play. I think most of us are desperately worried about organising recovery and support for vulnerable residents. Just to assure him that we've had written permission from the police at the beginning of the first wave of COVID to make sure that we could go out to distribute newsletters to residents so that they had emergency contact information on. And I met with the Police and Crime Commissioner this morning and Inspector Mark Dixon to talk about door knocking activities where we're trying to identify vulnerable residents so that we can signpost them to food banks or prescription collections or other things. But at this time, I think it's the most vital time obviously for us to be communicating with people so they know where we all are. And unfortunately, I think the government did specifically in the last lockdown omit political parties from work so that they were fully able to do it. And of course, this time they've said that people who are volunteering to do work can still do it. So I'm very happy that we're out and about in our communities, because I think this is the time they need us the most. But I think that's probably a slight distraction from this part of the debate, because I think what we really need to be debating is what on earth we can do to try and recover for our businesses and for the economic growth. And we've got a lot of exacerbated businesses here, and I know many of them who really want to hear from us all about which bits we agree on rather than those we disagree on. And seeing as though Mr. Fuller's put on one of his best bow ties, he never disappoints me, and everybody else has turned up, I hope we can debate business stuff as quickly as we can. And turn to that, Mr. Chairman, I'm very happy to enter the debate whenever you need me for that sort of thing.
Thank you very much, Leader. Councillor Grounds, is there anything else you want to add?
I did get a question through WhatsApp earlier. I'm not sure if that can be answered in this committee. But what does anybody know what the stance are on insurances paying out and helping businesses? Because a lot of businesses are insured for things like SARS, but as COVID-19, I'm not sure that's anything that anybody would know about.
Anybody? Can maybe we look into that and get back to Councillor Grounds and cascade the answer to the panel? Is that all right? Does that sound acceptable, Dale?
Yeah, that'd be great. Yeah, I'm aware that some ombudsmen have been in touch with people about court cases and stuff. I just want answer on anything about it.
We'll find out and get back to you on that one, Dale.
Sorry, Chair, I know Richard Fuller would like to come in at this stage.
Okay, Richard from County Batteries.
Yeah, can you hear me all right?
Yeah, we can hear you.
I spoke to my insurance. He said that we weren't covered even though we got business interruption insurance. Since then, there has been court cases or people taking insurances to court, and that's still in the ether, I think. So as soon as that comes out, people will know. But generally, I think that most people aren't covered at this moment in time.
Okay, well, maybe we can get confirmation, and if we get information that differs from that, we'll share it with you, Richard. But I doubt it. It sounds pretty black and white, doesn't it? Right. Thank you very much, everyone. Now, thank you very much, Ruth, as well, for that comprehensive report. And I'm glad that the panel got a chance to put their queries. So we're going to move on to agenda item 5, which is business recovery and support. And this is the main item of tonight's agenda. At the last meeting of the panel, members were keen to hear from some local businesses to consider the impact that the pandemic has had so far and potential impacts of the new restrictions. I think it's important for us to hear how businesses have adapted their models to continue to deliver their services. In attendance today, we have a broad selection of business owners who have all kindly agreed to participate in the meeting tonight. Before I introduce them and invite them to address the panel with an overview, I would like to ask Teresa Hodgkinson, Service Director for Place and Communities, Christine Saris, the Assistant Director for Planning and Regulatory Services, and Paul Stoppard, the Senior Economic Development Officer, to make any comments on the impact of the new regulations, local business support, and an update on the new business support service. So I'll take those in order. So Teresa, would you like to make any comments?
Thank you, Chair. Just very briefly, welcome again to the businesses. It's good to see you all on the call. It has been a challenging week, a challenging couple of weeks, going from Tier 2 on the 14th of October to Tier 3 on the 30th of October, and then going into total lockdown today. So, yes.
All right, Jerry.
Hello.
We're having a few technical difficulties.
I'll say what we'll do then. We'll move straight on to Christine Saris, and we'll come back. Oh, Teresa, are you back? Can you hear us, Teresa?
Am I back?
Yeah, you're back. Carry on.
Can you hear?
Yeah.
Okay. I don't know which one you got to. I was just covering all the challenges that we had with all the different tiers and going into lockdown. What I did welcome was council approving the local recovery, the economic recovery plan, and officers are very busy behind the scenes putting that into a clear action plan with some performance measures in there that allow us to support the businesses. Just building on Ruth's brief update on the business support grants, I think it's really important that we have actually got the expertise and a proven track record of giving £20 million out from the last business support grants that we gave. And I think it's important at this stage in the interim that we welcome all businesses that have any inquiries to come through to our business support unit. And we've put our contact details onto the website. So if you could include those in the minutes, I'd really welcome that, because we're having a lot of calls coming through, whether that's through our licensing, through our environmental health department, or just wanting business advice. So if I could just ask that you use that in the interim, because whilst we're waiting for the government to come out with the business grants, there's not a lot we can tell until that point. But please keep a watch out on our website. We're updating it as regularly as we can when government are giving us the information. Not building on the business grants, because Ruth's already covered that. We are continuing with some of our initiatives that we've already put in place. I've already spoke about the High Streets Fund and putting the support in there to support the town centres and the wider conurbations, but also that we're confirming that we're continuing with our free parking, 2 hours free parking in our town centres to encourage people to shop in those essential shops. We're also looking at the Kickstart scheme, not only internally, we're taking on 20 young people, and we're also encouraging businesses out there to encourage them to use the Kickstart scheme within their businesses. And as I've said, we have given £20 million out to date. We've also given business rate relief up to £10 million to our businesses. So there's lots of support out there that the council can offer. But I think my key message before I hand over to Christine is that we are here. We are here to give you support and guidance. Please use us. Please go on our website for regular updates and use the big business support team that's been set up. And it has been set up with a number of officers to actually support businesses in this challenging time. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Teresa. Can I bring Christine Cyrus? Christine is the Assistant Director for Planning and Regulatory Services. Christine, good evening.
Hello, good evening, everybody, and thank you for joining us again tonight. I think the important thing for us is just for you to understand you need to be a little bit patient with us, because we are digesting an awful lot of legislation. The officers are working very hard to understand that. We fully appreciate that all businesses are concerned with their futures, and we will get back to you as soon as we are able to. Paul Stoppard is really heading up the business support, and he's putting an information pack together for businesses, and we're hoping to go forward with that more towards the end of next week. We're also here to provide a lot of guidance and information as well around health and safety in the workplace and in your premises. So if you've got any queries about COVID safety, please don't hesitate to contact us in terms of environmental health. We've very much taken an approach of trying to work with businesses to educate them. Although we've spoken about the enforcement powers, the enhanced enforcement powers that we're getting, we really don't want to have to use those kind of enforcement powers. We much prefer working with businesses and encouraging compliance and supporting our businesses. I think I'm not going to say much more on that because I want to hand over to Paul to set out some of the things that he's been doing to help businesses.
Thank you, Christine. And I know that the panel were particularly impressed with Paul Stoppard. Paul is the Senior Economic Development Officer. Paul, he's been working 22 hours a day. He's looking forward to upping that to 23. Paul, would you like to make some comments?
Yes, thank you. Thank you for the positive comments there. In terms of business support, it's a very new service. It's been running since September, so we're still developing it. But I can tell you that since that time, we've engaged with 224 businesses, and we've actually had 41 client introductions. So we've made referrals to partners. We've been very, very busy building a foundation of a service and we're still looking at trying to develop web pages that will give more information to customers. That's ongoing, and I think that will be completed by the end of November, probably early December. We've had some delays on that simply because there's been a high demand for the web team to work on the ADC website for other purposes. But hopefully that'll be back on track. We're also looking at getting in a new CRM system that will help us to deal with more clients quickly. So that's a special business support software. But at the end of the day, what we're offering is a triage business support service where we will engage with businesses to talk through their most critical problems. We can't help every problem, but what we'd like to do is find out what the key ones are that drive them. And if we can signpost them to a support opportunity or a partner, then that's exactly what we're going to do. So that's the kind of service we like to aim for. At the moment, we can only deal with inquiries by email and then obviously set up some kind of online video meeting. It's impossible to take telephone calls simply because we'll be overwhelmed. But going forward, I think that will expand. But it needs time to grow.
Okay, thank you, Paul. We're now going to move on to the really important part of the meeting tonight. In attendance today are Gary Jordan, he's chair of Mansfield and Ashfield 2020. We've got Richard Fuller from County Batteries. We've got Ava Tinkling from Twisted Tink Modern Barbers. I had to practice that before the meeting. Nina Bianco from Kirkby Sales and Exchange. We've got Ray O'Connor from the shop and some of us involved in Kickstart Gym on Outram Street in Sutton. And we've got Stuart and Sam Handley from Swift Tool Precision. I want to, in order to ensure that all of our invited representatives get the opportunity to speak, I would like to ask them each to introduce themselves, which business they represent, challenges faced and being faced by the latest restrictions. I will then open it up to questions from the panel before asking each of the invitees whether they have any questions. So I'd like to start with Gary Jordan, the chairman of Mansfield and Ashfield 2020. Mr. Jordan, good evening and thank you for coming.
Good evening. Thank you, David. I'm here representing Mansfield and Ashfield 2020 Business Group. I'm an actual sole trader in the Mansfield area, my own business, an executive coach. I'm here really to listen and I've been really impressed with what I've heard so far on how I can funnel some of the things that Ashfield Council are doing to the businesses to give them the confidence going forward, particularly in the next month. The challenges that we've been told in our recent surveys are furlough scheme was coming to an end. That appears now that that's going to go on till March. So that's going to give a bit of confidence. Cash and cash flow issues, supply chain and customer confidence, particularly when talking to people in the retail and the hospitality sectors, and an ability or lack of ability to reinvent themselves. So if you guys can come up with any ideas from other businesses, I'd be really interested in learning how people can have a bit of innovation and creativity in reinventing themselves. And another big topic that's coming up again from the retail people in particular is the digital arena. So they're the challenges that we as a business group are being told. Me personally as a business coach, mine is up and down because the businesses that I go into coach are in and out of furloughing their staff, and I talk to them and say it's not really right for me to be taking your money when you're not paying your staff. So I think that's it really. Mansfield and Ashfield 2020 do very much similar to some of the things that you've been talking about, signposted, running peer groups, networking sessions. Nathan, who works with Paul, has been to a number of those events and starting to get a bit of good dialogue with him, and I've still yet to get in touch with Paul and have an open discussion with him on how we can support you. So that's me.
Thank you, Gary. I'd now like to bring in Richard Fuller from County Batteries. Richard, good evening.
Good evening. Right, so how's it affected us? I think when it all kicked off in March, we closed for a day, I think, and then went back because I got so many customers, and we supply hospitals and emergency staff, so we got to sort of stay back open. After that, the garages slowly started to close because the MOTs had finished, and so a lot of the trade business went, but the web business increased. Maybe you need to look at going online. From a stock point of view, it's been difficult because I think when things went in March, people cancelled orders, and because we're in the battery business, it's not like a business where you are selling a service. Because my wife, for example, is a massage therapist. If she doesn't massage somebody, they're not going to come back for that. But actually, if your car doesn't start, whether you're going to buy a battery now or you're going to buy it in 6 weeks or a year or whenever. So people had cancelled orders. So then there was a backlog of products that didn't come through. So there have been shortages. The grant scheme worked very well. Ashfield were very good at getting the rate rebate, and we furloughed a number of our staff. The biggest worry I've got is we've got 3 depots. We've got one in Nuttall, one in Kirkby, and one in Ilkeston. If one of our satellite depots, if they get the COVID, then maybe I just shut that shop. If I get it in Kirkby, that's more difficult because theoretically it could shut us down. So it's difficult for us to put staff. It's difficult for me to furlough staff and leave them at home because we're essentially a warehouse and a shop. I've got to have people there loading vans and putting things in parcels and pallets. So that is the biggest worry, is that we all catch it and have to close. On saying that, we haven't had to close because we are supplying essential people, so we're probably an essential service. And I do feel sorry for those people that have got to close because things are tough. With regards to how information has got out, I think it's very good. I have, since the end of March, switched my Facebook off because I'm sick of it. I've switched all social media off, and I do my best not to look at any news. Everybody is making bad of the situation, and probably I've not been affected as adversely as some people, but we've got to keep pushing the positive. This isn't the end of the world. Some people are going to die, some people are going to get ill, but most of us will come through it, we'll come out the other end, and we've got to stay positive. That's it, thanks.
Thank you very much, Richard. I'm now going to bring in Ava Tinkling from Twisted Tink Modern Barbies in Kirkby. Are you there, Ava? Good evening.
Good evening, all. Thank you very much for having me. Thank you very much for the invitation. What can I say? I'm a barber, so I'm working close with customers. I'm one of the close contacts. So my business being affected. I'm self-employed, solo trader. So basically, when I'm not working, I don't get any money. So my business was shut due to the COVID-19. Obviously, I had the grant from the ADC, which was really, really helpful, easy to get. There wasn't any issue. I think all small businesses in our town centre in Kirkby particularly got all the grants, what they asked for. Now we are back again in the same situation, which is very frustrating because my business, ourselves as our business, because I said mine and my husband as well, we put extra measure, which we put special covers on our seats, which protect from COVID, which kills the COVID within 10 minutes. And although we put all the measures, apart from that, we put all the stickers, we had hand sanitizers, we have everything possible done what we have to do to keep our business going. We're still being shut down by the government to the local, to the lockdown, which is very frustrated for all small businesses, being hairdresser and barber, because actually passing the transition to customers is 0.05%, which is tiny, and we still we do not understand why we still shut down. Although I know it's not your decision, it's a government decision. So moving forwards, I really don't know what to say at the moment, because self-employment grants coming from 14th of December, maybe end of November. It's not confirmed yet. I don't think I heard confirmation yet. That's it really, what I can say at the moment.
Okay, thank you.
you.
Just to say that your business was one that Councillor Grounds was continually raising as an example of extreme good practice. So, you know, we do feel for you, and we hope that you be open as soon as possible. I'd now like to bring in Nina Bianco. Nina's from the Kirkby Sales and Exchange. Nina, are you there?
I am. Hi, thank you for having me. Can you hear me?
Yeah, just.
Okay. I'm from Kirkby Sales and Exchange, and we shut down in March, and I started delivering. Because we are a second-hand business, I had to probably stop delivering by the end of May, because the only stock that was selling was entertaining stuff, probably about 10% of my business. As I buy that in, I couldn't get hold of the stock. So for that reason, we had to start doing what we could do, which is a bit of a concern this time. I've actually been waiting for a response. I've spoken to Jason. As a small loan provider, because we do buybacks, I believe I can stay open. But I've not actually had this confirmed. I've been told that different councils are letting it in different areas of the country. Don't know if anyone knows the answer to that, whether I can stay open or not.
I think one of the things is, Nina, as we talked about before, is that we are literally getting things by the hour from the government. So
yeah,
no, it's this diktat that comes down, but we'll be very happy to chase that up for you and get you an answer.
That would be great. What I
want to talk about how you've adapted?
We've adapted. So we've done delivery, which has helped. We're doing more on social media, but because we're doing more on social media, it's taking up more time of my staff. Say like someone came into the shop and you do a sale, that's done in 5 minutes. Over a message, that can take 20 to 30 minutes, because you've got different questions, you have to send photos. So even though we are probably still at the same, probably 20% down on last year's profits, I actually need to employ more staff because we've got more work. Because we've also got to keep it clean and keep it COVID safe, because we're a second-hand business, we're having to isolate items all the time, we're having to clean items all the time. So I don't know whether we can get funding. You ask how we can have funding. I think businesses' two main expenses are rent and wages. Now, I know that we can employ I forgot the word for it, but the oh, what's the word? I don't know. I'll miss that one. But instead of I want to keep my staff instead of employing apprentices. That's it. I'd like to know if there's any kind of grants you can have towards paying your staff to try and keep those in business. That's personally what would help me through this situation.
Sure.
And my other question would be that I know as the council that it's hard to get the information out, but I would like an email that even if it's said, we actually don't know anything at the moment, we'll let you know as soon as we do. That will be helpful, because I spent the last 2 days trying to Google whether we can stay open or not. Just to be told that you know nothing would be better, is what I find.
Okay, thank you, Neil. And we're going to open it up to questions in a minute. So if you don't mind, if we just hold that thought for a second.
Yeah.
And then we'll open it up to questions shortly. I'd now like to bring in Ray O'Connor. Ray runs the shop in Sutton in Ashfield on Outram Street. It's actually in my ward of Sutton Central and New Cross. But not only does he do that, he acts as a spokesperson for small business and champions small business in Sutton and Ashfield. So Ray, would you like to come in?
Good evening. Thank you, David and the committee, for inviting me tonight. I hope you can hear me. We can or we can't. As David knows, and some of the people on this meeting, I'm trading on Outram Street in Sutton in Ashfield. I'm a sole trader and I've been trading for the last 9 years on Outram Street. Have reinvented my business now probably 3 or 4 times. Once from a food retailer to an electrical appliance retailer, but due to ill health changed that because I can't carry washing machines anymore. And recently through March, I took in a line of essential products, cleaning products, household products. Personally, I'm probably the controversial one. I have hundreds of questions from myself and other small traders, mainly on Outram Street, of course, regarding grants and such like. But have found information coming out slowly to us. I feel, and so do a lot of the traders in Outram Street, that we've been in lockdown since March. People in Sutton, we've noticed, tend to prefer to shop in the larger retail stores. They're not going to walk down the street to pick up an item for 50p. As sole traders, we are, and I am definitely struggling. In all honesty, I don't know whether I will come back out of it this time round or whether we'll find something else to do. Fortunately, I do have another business interest in Kickstart Gym, again on Outram Street, which is holding its own. Obviously, it's been severely impacted because there's a debate on whether gyms are healthy or not healthy. We've just got to wait and see. And as the questions come up, I'm sure there'll be somebody like Ruth I need to speak to regarding grants, which have all been very helpful. And my only concern to the grants are that some retailers that are open and traded right through March and currently trading through what is now a national lockdown, are they going to be entitled to the same grants as the rest of us that have been forced to close? Is predominantly the main question that I'm getting asked. And as you can give me feedback, I obviously feed it back through my own Facebook page, which is for a lot of other traders. I'm gladly sit here and answer any questions anybody's got. And generally, I'm brutally honest, as some of the other members will tell you. But thank you for that, Dave.
Thank you, Ray. I'd like to bring in our final business now tonight before we open it up from questions for the panel to our guests tonight, and that's Stuart and Sam Handley. They're from Swift Tool Precision. Stuart or Sam?
Good evening, it's Sam actually.
Hi, Sam, good evening.
Hi, good evening. Okay, so I'm a director of Swift Tool Precision Engineering. It's a husband and wife team. We're based in Huthwaite and we employ 134 people. And I'm very fortunately for us, we've been operational since day one because we were deemed critical under both infrastructure, communications and defence for the MOD. So we had to adapt extremely quickly. And during that time, we were featured on the Cabinet Office social media site for practising safely, because of all the measures that we put into place. We furloughed only less than 5% of the company, and we did that on the grounds of health to make sure that our high-risk workers were safe. And obviously, we've not qualified for any grants or anything like that. And in order to make sure that we cope with any potential downturn in work in the next 12 months, we've obviously secured financial support independently, because we've had to go through this completely on our own. We've had to be fully operational, make sure we've got everything in place to keep everybody safe, and I'm absolutely delighted that we have so far. Lockdown started on the 20th of March. The government guidelines in terms of safe working for factories and warehouses was published on the 11th of May. So that was particularly helpful. So I mean, it's been a journey, but some of the things we've done, we've insisted in masks for our workers from day one. We've screened everybody off. Everybody gets health screened when they come in the building. We don't allow contractors on site anymore unless it's critical business. We've even done antibody testing voluntary on the staff to keep everyone safe. We've had to issue them with travel letters because, of course, we've contributed to the ventilator challenge as well during this time. So it's been very, very tough. And no one's war story is worse than anybody else, but we've also done small things like make sure we've given our staff flu jabs for this year, etc. So we've done all this independently. And in answer to the question earlier in terms of what was on the agenda, where did we get our support from and advice? I'm a board member for Make UK. They've been exceptionally helpful and helped us through this. But you know, for a family business, it's not been easy. Our challenges are around digitalisation, automation going forward. We've spent £85,000 on PPE for our staff, which is an incredible amount of money, but we've done that to make sure we keep everybody safe because we take our responsibilities extremely seriously. And I think my kind of message here, if you like, would be that whilst I absolutely champion enforcement and good policing of social distancing, you know, in general public and workplaces, please never forget that there are responsible employers out there, like myself, like my husband, who have spent a considerable amount of money making sure that our staff are safe and that we take that personal responsibility with us home every day, every night, every time we go to bed. And you please understand as well that COVID isn't something, it's big and it's massive, but when you're dealing with defence, nuclear, in a highly regulated industry, doing parts of the NHS, etc., you have to have high regulations anyway. So your quality management systems have to be robust. You know, you have to be able to adapt quickly and strongly. And I'm delighted to say that during this year, we've also been recognised by Princess Anne for training awards for the apprenticeships, and also somehow managed to secure Make UK's SME of the Year for the Midlands. So it's been a hell of a year for us. But throughout it, our priority as business owners has been keeping people safe. So, you know, the message from us is, whilst we welcome the fact that there needs to be some enforcement out there, please also be mindful that there are a handful of unrecognised, forgotten key workers out there that have given their all this year, our staff being them. And, you know, maybe a thank you sometimes, as opposed to that enforcement, would be really welcome from businesses such as ours. We've heard reports of HSE turning up and being, we have to hold this together. It's our livelihood. We're highly regulated anyway, and that's the message really. And thank you for this opportunity today to be able to put that message out there.
No, thank you, Sam, and thank you. You know, I mean, at the end of the day, you know, it's one of the things that has come up on this panel regularly, and it's something that we'll be working on, some sort of acknowledgement of good practice. You know, if anything, to help other businesses, you know, copy good practice. So I'd like to now open it up to the panel. So what I'd ask is just a bit of patience. I'm going to ask for Mike and Shane's help as well with this, because what we're going to do is I'm going to go through each panel member. I was going to get Kevin Rostons first, but I think he's gone for a brew. So I'll go back. So do we have any questions for the guests? I'd like to ask Councillor Grounds to kick off, if that's okay, Councillor Grounds.
Yeah, of course, yeah. Twisted Tinks, one of the questions to them is, they was recognised by the Nottingham Post for their fantastic COVID safety in the shop, and I thought it'd be a great idea for Ava to explain how they did that for the shop.
Ava, are you happy to answer that?
just on. One second, let's just find this. So I put the right word for it because there's certain name what is on that material what we're using, and I lost this right now. So what we did, we use Medicovers, which is basically a material that you put over touch surfaces. It contains silver nitrate, what kills the virus in 10 minutes. You can put that everywhere, whichever you touch, on the door handles. We put on the door handles. We have put it on our station, on the chest.
So you're just freezing, Ava.
Well, you can't see it really, but I'm sure. Is it freezing up?
Sorry, no, carry on, Ava.
Sorry.
Right.
So we put all the material on the handles, on the chest, on the workstation, on the handles to the walking through the door, which I think is really important for the businesses to have. And that's how this works, really. Also, we put extra measures with PPE, mask, face mask, face shield, loads of hand sanitizer, cleaning all equipment, changing gowns for every customer. It's only what we could do at the most. Thank you.
Thank you, Ava. Right, is that any other questions to any other businesses, Dale?
Yes, Swift Tool. You mentioned the antigen testing, which it sounds really, really good. How did that go?
Just need to unmute, Sam, if that's okay. Sam, are you able to unmute? There we go. You're on.
Thank you. Sorry, I was saying the host wouldn't let me unmute, but we're back now. Yeah, I did it on a voluntary basis, and we had 78% of the workforce wanting to do it. Fascinating results that came back from that would indicate that back in February and March, there was approximately 7% of the workforce that may have been having COVID, and because of our measures, we stopped it. It never spread. So there was 2 points of doing it, because I was able to do this test if I wanted to back in April, May, but I didn't want to because it wasn't going to change practice. And obviously, medico-legally, as an employer, you can only do something like that if you believe you're looking for an outcome from it. You can't just test for testing's sake. So if I'd done it back in April or May, it wouldn't have changed practice. But doing it early September, it was going to inform our next round of practice for the next 6 months, because that's going to tell me, do I need to split my teams A and B again? Are the current operating guidance that we're working on, is it working? Is there a risk in terms of who we've got working together? If anybody's had it, can we separate them into more contingent plans for the business? So there was a whole piece of work that came out from doing it. And also I needed to know whether or not what we'd done had worked to stop the infection spreading. And I'm delighted to say that it had, but people were very willing to do it. The test we had was Shore Screen in Derby, which we know from our customer is the right thing to do in terms of the MOD things. We hired an outside nursing agency to come in and administer them. Obviously, you can't do it yourself. But it gave us information in order to plan the next 6 months. And the key thing for us, because we split the workforce between A and B teams, the contingency, we needed to know if there was anybody in those A and B teams, as there was an opportunity to split them even further to negate the risk. But yeah, it's something that we will do again, and we'll probably do it because let's be honest, if this goes on till June next year, we'll probably look to do it again potentially in January.
No, that's fantastic. You're one of the first companies I know of that's done something like that. It's really good.
It's survival though, isn't it? It's survival.
Yeah.
Okay, I'd like to now bring in Councillor Kevin Rostance. Councillor Rostance, have you got any questions to any of the businesses today? No? Okay. Councillor Wilkinson. Hi, Councillor Wilkinson.
Thank you, Chairman. Can I just say, I would like to thank all the retailers and traders who have come here tonight for your loyalty to this district and its residents. It's very much appreciated. I did have a couple of questions I wanted to ask, but I think the first one's actually been answered by our council. It was just to reassure people here tonight that we're doing everything possible to support businesses in Ashfield. And the second one is, I would like to put it out to the retailers and traders. Are they satisfied that this council is doing everything possible to ensure residents' safety when they are shopping?
Okay, I'm just going to flick through the screens now. So if there's any of our guests tonight would like to comment on that, do you think the council are doing everything possible to ensure residents' safety? Is there anyone who would like to speak? Do you want to indicate if you do? I'm just going to carefully swing through. Councillor Wilmot, I don't think you're a trader. We'll bring you in shortly. Okay, that's all right. Richard Fuller, Mr. Fuller, and then I'm going to bring in Ava. Okay, Richard.
Yeah, I don't think I don't think the general public have got too much to worry about. Wherever I've been, most of the traders have been following rules. They've been very careful. I think everybody's quite serious about this. I'm not sure that you need to go on patrol and make sure that everybody's doing it, because I think generally we're all pretty good.
Okay, thank you, Richard. Ava Tinkling.
I want to just say, as a small business, yes, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Yeah.
Hello.
Hello. Yeah, we can hear you.
Yeah. So we took all the. Yeah. So I took all the precautions as a small business, but as having customers in the shop, they have concern going to Morrison's and big shop, like Tesco, Morrison's, and all them kind of big shops, as they complain that people do not take precautions, like the shops do not take the track and trace, for example. So as we know, if you can touch anything area, they just concerned about that really. And looking at the town centre, all shops are shut, so there is nothing to really check on. But I'm just saying the big retails, that's the biggest issue, which before in the lockdown they were shut, but at the moment they're all open. That you can go to IKEA, you can go to Morrison, obviously that's food, but you can go to Superdrug, or you can go to other places which you can touch anything and that would spread, and then you can go anywhere else. But what I'm saying is that I think it's just general question what people complain about is to me personally, because obviously I'm having close contact with other customers. That's me only. Thank you.
Thank you, Ava. I'd like to now bring in Councillor Dave Shaw. Dave, have you got any questions for any of our businesses tonight?
Sorry about breaking up, Chair. Again, obviously it's been offline again. One thing that concerned me, and which our businesses have been hinting to, is the hidden cost of furlough, the hidden cost of putting the precautions into place, which is going to impact on the business in the long term, such as putting the PPE in place, how much this is going to cost these businesses, which is not accounted for in a recompense from government. My general question to the people that's online would be, when we get through this, which we will get through this, what would we need to do as a council to put in place to actually regenerate our town centres, to actually make sure that these businesses survive once we're through all this? Thank you.
Okay, if any of the businesses would like to answer, if you just please indicate by putting your hands up. Okay, I'll start with Ray O'Connor.
Sorry, I was just unmuting there. Just in reply to Councillor Shaw's comments there, I think basically it's going to be different in every town. Sutton is going to be different to Kirkby. Kirkby is going to be different to Hucknall. Each one of the town groups will turn around and say that their town's been neglected, their town's run down, their town's got this problem or got that problem. I can only speak obviously for Sutton and Sutton Town Centre. What we need in Sutton Town Centre is a lot more communication from our town centre manager and a business group forum, which includes all small traders, large retailers, and the general businesses together to sit down around the table and literally talk for once common sense. I've heard all these meetings, and I've been to many a meeting, shoplifting committees, town centre committees, and nobody seems to speak common sense. It's not about big retailers. It's not about small retailers on their own. It's about working together, all having a common goal, all having a common interest, and actually achieving something. And that is what I feel we will need in Sutton, is council backing with people that movers and shakers that can actually regenerate the town as a whole, because Sutton Town Centre, in my opinion, is dying.
Yeah, I think, Ray, I mean, we've talked about this often, haven't we? And, you know, whilst the council have got ambitious regeneration plans, it's absolutely critical to look after the existing traders. And I also agree with you, actually, that, you know, do you remember when the police set up a Sutton Town Centre group, and they invited Idlewells and they invited Asda, invited every single major retailer, and Ray and I gate crashed it. And that was the last meeting they ever let us know about, wasn't it? I'm happy to speak to Trevor Middleton, Ray, to make sure that engagement is improved. You know, we'll go from there. Thank you for your comments. Is there any other traders that would like to respond to that point?
We've got Richard Fuller, Chair.
Okay, Mr. Fuller.
You can call me Richard if you like.
Sorry, Richard.
It's all right, no problem. Teresa, I think earlier on spoke about the free car parking. You know, all these, and it doesn't affect me because we've got a car park, but you know, all the big supermarkets and all the big players, which are all the enemy actually. Well, the biggest enemy is Amazon, but you know, we're all trading against these people. They've all got free car parking. I think that actually, if the 2-hour free car parking is a great idea. If you can get people back into the shops, that's the best way to recover.
Yeah, I mean, I know that I saw, for example, today that, you know, I mean, it does present particular challenges because, you know, it does affect receipts at the council. So, for example, you know, Mansfield Borough Council had to announce today that they were going to have to start charging for parking on a Sunday, for example. And, you know, there are real challenges there. And we did recognise this, and we did praise the council, Richard, for that decision, because it's not easy at a time when, you know, council finances are at an all-time low. I think it was good that Ashfield District Council actually put the money where their mouth is and did that. So that's particularly welcome. Is there any other traders before I bring in Councillor Blagdon that would like to speak? I'm just going to carefully go through. Okay, Councillor Blagdon. Jim Blagdon, the Vice Chairman.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. Easy questions, really, Chairman. How difficult is it to change to online sales and click and collect for businesses? Also, Chairman, if I might, out of all this gloom, we've had some really good news tonight from Swift Tours, and I'd like to congratulate them on the awards they've received. So, and well done. Oh, I think well done from all of us at Ashfield. So it's well done, Sam.
Thank you, Councillor Blagdon. Finally, Councillor Smallridge, is there anything you'd like to raise with the businesses?
Yes, Chair. Well, it's a general question, really. I think I was very impressed by the mostly positive attitude of the business speakers. And I think as councillors, we should do everything or do our best for these businesses. So the question really is, what more can we do? Tell us. And, you know, on the mask in towns, which somebody mentioned, I think when people need educating to put the mask on properly, because a lot of them have got it on their chin or under their nose, which I don't think is really acceptable. So maybe a sign.
Okay, I'm going to bring in Councillor Wilmot shortly, but is there any sort of traders? What could we do more, Ashfield District Council? If you'd like to indicate.
We've got Nina Bianco, Chair.
Okay, Nina. And then Eva.
Hi, thank you. One of the things that I've noticed in Kirkby is that we've lost a lot of shops, and particularly through this lockdown. We get lots of complaints from people that I know that rent council properties that the rent is really high. We seem to have higher rent than any of the other towns. I didn't know if that was something that you could consider, because when the town is half empty of shops, it's not very appealing. You'd rather go to other towns than come into ours.
Okay, maybe we could address that. Eva, I've worked very hard today to make sure I got your name right. You know, I had to ring Councillor Grants before to make sure. So apologies for getting it wrong. But Eva, would you like to respond to that? What could we do more?
So my question or my suggestion, well, I don't know actually, I mean, anybody could do anything about the plaza. I think plaza was made 4 years ago, I would say.
Yeah, I think what we're getting over is
when the town centre was changed.
Yeah, come on, you cut it out. Are you back on? Are you back on?
Yes.
Okay, carry on. So you were talking about the plaza.
Yes. So I'm thinking, is there a new way to change that? Would that plaza be coming to town centre, park the car for 45 minutes for free? Because that's the most important at the moment. There is no people coming to this town centre. Kirkby is dead. I can literally count in town centre how many people walk through the town centre on a week time basis. It is really quiet. The town centre is dead. Especially the
right, I think
the fact is that the post office is gone. I don't know what walking about. I'm breaking again.
Yeah, you are breaking up all the time. So I think what I'm getting from that is a frustration at the moment. And let's just check, is Sarah Daniel on the call? Because one of the big things that the council are putting together at the moment is bids for the Towns Fund, which is you know, up to £25 million in regeneration funding. So in answer to your question, there will be funding available. Would you just like to extend on that, Sarah? Good evening.
Good evening, everyone. Thanks, Councillor Hennigan. I'm really sorry I can't have my camera on tonight. I've got some issues. But yeah, in response to that, yeah, we've got a number of initiatives that we are planning through the Towns Fund, and one of which is around the Accelerated Towns Fund, which we were successful in securing £750,000 for both Sutton and Kirkby. And within those plans for Kirkby, as Ava was saying about the vacant shops on Lowmore Road on the pedestrianised area, that's a high priority for us, that we've got to get those shops filled and pull people into the town centre, give them a reason to visit. So what we're looking at doing there with 3 of the shops along there is converting them into an indoor market. So we're working on the plans for that at the moment, and that project will need to be completed by the end of March next year. So the plan is that we would have some market stores in there, attract new businesses into the town, and provide a really good offer that's going to attract other businesses and then also people to actually visit the town. That's one of the things we're doing. And then take your point about the plaza, Ava, that is underused space. What we're looking at doing there in the longer term through the Towns Fund is developing a new building along down the side of Boys, where that walkway is at the moment. We're looking at developing a cafe offer on there, so that what would happen is you'd have people spilling out onto their seating areas on the plaza. So you'd have some active frontage onto the plaza, and you'd also have a place that people would actually come to. So that is what we're looking at. And then the site opposite, potentially, we're looking at some development along there as well. And that would also have active frontage. So bringing a lot more people into that area to use it. That's the longer term plan. I think
Okay,
that covers everything.
Thank you, Sarah. Sorry to drop you in it. Right, finally, and I'm going to move on to questions from the traders specifically, because, as I say, we have got senior officers here tonight: Teresa Hodgkinson, Christine.
We've got Councillor Grounds as well, Chair.
Okay, I'm going to bring in Councillor Wilmot first. John.
Thank you very much, Chairman. Just to tell the people from the businesses here, I had a business for 40 years in Hucknell. And
pet shop?
Yes, a pet shop and riding gear, horse riding gear. But the question I want to ask them is, I've got the portfolio holder for regulatory services, which includes environmental health, the COVID-19 situation in that area, and the licensing, which has been a heck of a problem. I think it's been the busiest work programme I've had since being on the council, and I've been on the council for 30 years. The first thing I want to say is, before I ask the question about the issue that I'm going to ask the businesses, are they aware that of all the projects that environmental health and the licensing are doing? Are they getting all the possible information that they need? If not, I want to know some questions to them, to say to them, is there anything we can do to help you further in making sure that you're very safe with your customers, etc. Just like to tell everybody, the businesses, that we actually got.
Do you want to make it quick, because we're running out of time? So
yeah. I got in touch with over 2,000 businesses, the environmental health, which did a splendid job. We are educating rather than penalising businesses. And the big issue, somebody asked about enforcement. The best enforcement team we've got is the general public. I get calls every day from the general public saying this is not being done right, this is not being done right. And I know that whether people think that we have got a good enforcement, we've got a splendid enforcement. But the thing is, we're not trying to dictate anything. We're trying to engage with people and help them rather than actually prosecuting. And that's the way forward, as far as I'm concerned. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, John. Is there any traders or retailers that would like to sort of question about the environmental health issues? No? Okay. Councillor Grounds, finally, in this section.
Yeah, I've just got two questions before you move on, Chair, if that's okay.
Yeah, sure.
Firstly, I'm really keen on the council showing some recognition to shops for their efforts in making sure that everybody's safe. What would traders like to see from the council as that recognition? And then second question would be, what do shop traders think would revitalise town centres? What kind of events would they like to see? Anything like that? Thank you.
Okay, straight into Nina Bianco then. Nina?
Thank you. I've actually recommended things before in many a meeting to Trevor, which some have been put forward, and he has apologised, but they've been took to Sutton. So they've been my ideas for Curtis.
Quite right.
Sorry, I'm joking. Thanks. But what I've always pushed, and because where I started my business was on a car boot, and car boots are very, very busy places. Other towns seem to have like outdoor markets and Christmas fairs, and we always seem to not do very well with that. I wondered whether we could, with the new money that's coming, invest in some like huts for in the town that small business and the young starting out could go into these spaces, like a pop-up shop, if you like. I didn't know whether that would be something.
Yeah, thank you, Nina. And it's something, you know, it has actually come up at this committee in terms of improving our markets. You know, I mean, looking at more thematic markets, you know, farmers markets, plant markets, you know, things like that. And
yeah, I think we need to modernise it a little bit.
Yeah, I agree, and we'll take that on board, and we may invite you back to a future meeting. Okay.
Okay, lovely.
Okay, to discuss that. Is there any other businesses that would like to answer that? I've got Richard Fuller. Sorry, Richard. It's because you're wearing a bow tie. You see, it's this hierarchical stuff.
Well, I'd like you to open Lowmore Road up. It used to be great before, you know, when I'm a bit older than some of the people here, but somebody some years ago got landed with a load of money and decided maybe it was a fund to improve Kirkby. And what they did, they blocked it up in the middle and turned Kirkby into a dead end. So my suggestion is that you open the road up again and see if you can get people looking at the shops that are there instead of being in the dead end bit.
Yeah, maybe Richard will feed that into the regeneration plans. You know, I'm sure that Sarah Daniel, who's leading on the project for the council, is on the call tonight, so I'm sure that she's taking note of that. Is there any other businesses? I've got Sam Handley. Sam?
Hiya. Looking ahead, obviously, because of the situation we're in, crime unfortunately will rise if we keep losing people keep losing jobs. Now, where we are in Hathaway, we have constant issues with travellers, and we have to protect ourselves with this. And we've also had other issues recently. It would be nice if there's some further support, or we start thinking around, maybe just not now, but in the next 9-12 months, in terms of what the crime situation might look like for businesses, and whether or not there's any support there to help us, you know, break-ins, etc. Because we're talking about the regeneration thing, but I don't quite think we've potentially, the worst of it isn't quite over yet, and we really need to be prepared for that. And
Sam, I absolutely agree with you. You know,
yeah, PPE costs alone, and then we're hiring security guards now as well. You know, I mean, it's tough. So that would be my
yeah. To regenerate an area effectively, you've got to deal with the short-term problems before you start to look to the long-term problems. A major problem in the Ashfield district is the lack of police. I'll be quite frank with you. You know, I speak to the local police inspector, Inspector Dixon, and he tells me it's like a boxer trying to fight with one arm tied behind his back.
It is.
Now, we are fighting for more resources. With regards to the regeneration plans, we've talked about Sutton, we've talked about Kirkby. There are plans to look at Huthwaite and Stanton Hill, for that matter, and to make improvements in Hucknall as well. So we're looking to do it across the board, but you're quite right. Unless we deal with these short-term problems, then it's going to become more difficult. And we are liaising with the police on a daily basis to make sure that we do that. As I say, you know, they go cap in hand and get pennies. What we need is pounds. Okay. Is there any other businesses that'd like to speak before we open it up to questions from them to either the panel members or our 3 senior officers that are here tonight? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with, let's go through. I'm going to start with Nina. Have you got any questions, Nina, you'd like to specifically ask?
The only other question, which has already been mentioned tonight, which I forgot to ask, was regarding the grants. I'd like to also be confirmed, because we are doing click and collect. I'm a bit concerned that obviously we are open. Would that affect us getting a grant?
Good question. Would anyone like to say that? Christine, Ruth, or Teresa? Maybe we could look into that and get back to Nina. Maybe Christine Saris?
Sorry, Chair, we've got Teresa's indicated she wants to speak first.
Oh, sorry,
Teresa.
Christine.
And it's quite rightly, and that's one of the things that we've not had confirmed yet about what the criteria of the grant will cover. So we are considering that element of it. So please bear with us when we get that information from the government, and if we can build that bit into the element of the grant giving, we will be able to do that, and that potentially will be the discretionary element of the grant giving. So I've made a note of that. And also, Chair, when I have the opportunity, I've made a number of notes and potential recommendations and actions following the very, very healthy discussions that we've just had. So I'm quite happy to highlight some of those at some point so that you can maybe consider them for recommendations for the panel.
Okay, thanks, Teresa. Christine, have you got anything to add?
Teresa answered that on my behalf, but we will contact you as soon as we've got more information. I've made a specific note for you.
Okay, Ray O'Connor from the shop on Alton Street in Sutton. Have you got any questions that you'd like to put to either the officers or the panel members?
Not really. The officers has just actually answered. I didn't want to offend anybody when I said about questions of traders who were going to get grants, who had traded in March and are still trading now. I was referring mainly to takeaway businesses and the larger retailers who have made quite a decent amount of money out of this, as opposed to the small individual traders who are forced to close, who are struggling, and some of us cannot go online with our product. But I'm sure you and I'll have conversations, and probably some other members of the council now will be in touch with me, I hope, for my views, and we'll see where we go from there.
Okay, thank you, Ray. Is there any officers who would like to answer? Paul, you know, I mean, you've come in like a whirlwind, and you know, in terms of supporting local businesses. Is there a sort of a special effort from the council to support smaller businesses just to make sure that they don't fold?
Well, yeah, there should be, and we are. In fact, most of the inquiries we're getting at the moment are from small micro businesses, not the larger businesses. So that's where we're putting most of our efforts. The grants that we're looking at the moment, I think will support a lot of the small businesses. So I think the discretionary element and the general grants will be useful. So I think there will be some support there. Other than that, we're desperately trying to find new sources of money, to be honest.
Yeah.
We can see this being required going into next year quite a way.
Yeah.
But until more money is released, there's very little we can do.
Sure.
In terms of retailers, what we want to try and do is help people digitalize. So give them the opportunity of not relying on footfall. So letting them work with e-commerce sites. So that's something we want to try and push and try and find ways to fund that change, help people to be more adaptable and to go online. Again, these things take a bit of time to put in motion, but it's something we know we need to focus on.
Sure, thank you, Paul. Appreciate that. Richard, is there any questions that you would like to specifically ask? No, is that okay?
No, good, thanks.
Thank you. Okay, so let's just carry on through. Ava?
I have 3 questions, kind of. So one of them is I'm asking for self-employment or solo traders who are in Kirby or other business, which I know. One of them is why track and trace payment are so hard to get it for people who are either self-employed or they are not working, but they're not claiming any benefits. The other question is kind of bigger scale, because we feel as a small business, especially close businesses like myself or the hairdressers, we feel that there is, we don't know who can fight for us to our businesses stays open. We feel that we've been let down by people who are supposed to fight for them small businesses being open. And also, we looking after well-being of other people, of our customers who comes, for example, to hairdressers or barbers, especially to us, to talk about stuff which they can't talk about at home. Also, there's a lot of elderly people who comes to us for the hair treatment, for the hair wash. Who's going to look after our well-being when we should now? That's my question. Thank you.
Okay, is there anyone who would like to take that one on? Okay, Teresa?
Obviously, I can only answer some of that, Chair, but I think in relation to the first question around sole traders, the grant that we're getting through at the moment will again be a discretionary element up to the council that didn't in the last grant that we got from government. We'll be able to look at supporting our sole traders and looking how that connects up with the self-employment. So the gap that we had last time that we've been campaigning to government for to take into consideration is being considered in this grant. So please watch that space, because we hopefully part of the discretionary will be able to support sole traders with the financial help from them grants. The second question, I'm going to spin it right round to Gary Jordan actually and ask if he could have an input into the support of small businesses, because this isn't just the council doing that or 2020, Mansfield and Ashfield 2020. We need to come together to look at how we can support small businesses. And we will be doing that through the economic recovery plan. But I'd like to hear from Gary if he's got any input into that about whether 2020, I know that they're doing lots of online training and supporting businesses and working on a number of initiatives. So I don't know, Gary, if you wanted to jump in here and answer that question. If not, I'm quite happy to take that one forward. And then the last one, health and well-being.
Yeah,
wow.
Unfortunately, my internet crashed just as the questions were being asked, Teresa. Could you just...
So the question too, Gary, was around small business support. And, you know, I think the council working, you know, through the economic recovery plan, you yourselves as an organisation are working with us and also with the small businesses looking at initiatives. So I don't know if you want to choose the opportunity to some of the support that you're offering to small businesses at the moment.
Yeah. Now I've got the question. Yeah, I started talking about it earlier on. We made a decision that we would do as much as we could on a free of charge basis, if you like. We've had question and answer sessions, peer group sessions, signposting businesses to the relevant authorities or the relevant people, used our business experts to come in and hold webinar sessions. We've got networking sessions twice a month, our breakfast meetings where we bring in speakers for sector or item specific issues. But that in itself is not enough at the moment. So we're now looking at how do we engage again. We don't want to be doing more polling and more surveying, so we're doing a bit more of a hands-on approach. We're on foot, if you like, going around talking to a number of businesses to actually hone in on what they perceive as their issue. So we're trying to tear back. We know there are cash issues and cash flow. We know that some guys supply chain issues, but is there something else that we can do? So I've worked with both Ashfield Council and Mansfield Council in terms of skills and growth ideas for the future. It's now all about trying to build some resilience back in. So all I can do is say we are continually asking for businesses to talk to us on what their problems are so we can match people together. And what is buzzing around a little bit, and I'd like to think it's in Ashfield as well, Martin Wrigley tells me it's starting to take shape, is that people are starting to think about collaborations. Business is competitive, and there are people who will be working against each other to some degree because it's their livelihood, it's their profitability. But how do we get them to work together to build stronger alliances? So the 3, 4, 10 small businesses working together are now one sizable unit. So that's a thing we're just trying to look at. We'll continue to put all our free events on, signpost them through your PR system, your PR machine at Ashfield Council. And we like to get all these businesses engaged with us to find out right under the skin, what are the true issues? And if it's about not understanding the business in the first place, true business management, maybe we've got some people who can help that. And we are talking to some large organisations to actually bring back some of their beneficial learnings, if that will help as well.
Okay, Gary, is there anything else that you'd like to add? Any other questions, or are you quite happy?
Myself?
Gary?
No, I'm quite. Has that answered the question? Has that answered the question? By the way,
That was a really comprehensive answer, but we'll check. Yeah, you happy? Okay. Okay. Finally, Sam Handley. Sam, is there any question that you'd like to ask to either our three senior officers or any panel members?
Thank you. Potentially not the exact forum for this, but if somebody would be kind enough to get in touch with me after this, we take our responsibilities to CSR extremely seriously. Last year we did a big piece around the homeless, and it goes back to my point earlier about crime, poverty in the area. I did actually reach out to the council about 2 weeks ago on Twitter asking if somebody could navigate me to the kind of local food bank resources so that we could potentially engage with those guys. If somebody could do that for me, that would be great, because this is a dire situation we're all in. But, you know, we have got to also try and continue, as we do now with our 134 work family members, but we have to try and continue our CSR piece as well. So if somebody can do that for me, that would be really helpful. Thanks.
We'll make sure that happens, Sam.
Great.
Okay.
Thanks a lot.
Okay, thank you, everyone. And before, I'm going to bring in the leader of the council, Jason Zadrozny, just for a couple of comments shortly. But I am aware of the time, and it is 8:45, and we have got quite a bit of progress to get through tonight, panel. So I'd like to move the suspension of standing orders. Is that okay? Is that what I need to do, Mike?
Sorry, Chair. Yes.
That's correct. Yeah. Okay. So I'd like to move that. Have we got a seconder? Okay, Councillor Blagdon. Those in favour of that, please show. Okay, that's clearly carried. Thank you very much, everyone. So we'll now move on. I'd like to bring in Councillor Jason Zadrozny just to summarise.
Sorry, Chair. Can I bring in Lynn Kane?
Sorry, Chair. I just wanted to make the point that what you're actually doing by suspending standing orders is that you're extending the time to close the meeting from 9 o'clock to 9:30. So I just wanted to make everybody aware that we've got sort of an extra half an hour after 9 o'clock.
Thank you for that clarification.
Thank you.
Okay, Jason, would you like to make any comments? No, well, Dave Shaw can then. Councillor Shaw? No, oh, Jason's there now. Hi, Jason. Sorry about that. You okay?
Yeah, sorry, Chair. Mike didn't want to unmute me. He tries to silence me now. He's got the power button. No, Chair, I don't really. I think it's been a very valuable discussion, and I just think from the administration point of the council, I really want to say an enormous thank you to the businesses, because you know, we try incredibly hard, our staff and our officers, but we actually need to hear. We haven't got a crystal ball, and keep hearing your different experiences and problem than everything else. I think it's really helpful, and I've always tried to have an open dialogue with you, and I think that's it's invaluable for us to be able to learn and adapt in actually an incredibly fast-moving, changing situation at the moment. So that's a real big thank you from me, and I thank you to the committee and the officers, because I know you've been working incredibly hard on this work. And I must say, just as a slight aside, I sit as a panel member on the County Council's COVID committee, and they just aren't doing this amount of work that our district councils wanted. So I'm really proud of the work you're all doing to try and make sure that we get through this together. I'm definitely pleased to see some of the other stuff, like helping food banks. I was at one again today. I was at one yesterday. Honestly, in my 13, 14 years as a councillor, I've never seen that need at this level. I think, and we're just seeing the tip of the iceberg. So businesses working together to help other people as well, so that they're still there to come back to your businesses at some point, I think is really valuable, and we can definitely signpost that. And I'm confident Teresa's smiling face means that they've taken lots of notes about making sure we can get. I think we share definitely your frustrations about information. It's so difficult. I want to be able to say, this is what's going to happen. This is when we're going to do it. We're going to put a form up tomorrow. But and the government have been really slow. I mean, we're right into the biz department almost daily now saying, please give us something, because people are, you know, you need some certainty, and it's awful. I did notice, Nina, as an aside, actually, that some of the pawn shops in Sutton have had confirmation directly from government that they can trade their cash services. So I think that's probably the same. So I always say it's slightly easier to get forgiveness than permission, but in this case, I suspect, given your financial service, do it unless we tell you not to. My other slight suspicion in a broader context for those who have asked is that trading, if you're allowed to trade, won't prohibit you from having a grant, but we haven't had that guidance yet. I would have thought even if you're still trading, you're going to have reduced income and all that other sort of stuff. And just like the last fund was called discretionary, this isn't discretionary either, but we're trying to negotiate as big a discretionary element into it as we can. It's not the 22 million we got last time. We think it's likely to be shy of 2 million, so it's going to be a lot less than last time. But we need to get it to businesses who need it, and so that you can survive. And that's our. I'm pleased to hear that most of you got it quickly as we could process it, so that's good, and we've learned from that to make it even swifter. But I just think through particularly Mansfield 2020 and what Gary's doing over there and some of the others, if we can keep talking, if you've got problems, talk to us. Paul and his team are new. We're really pleased that we've put that investment into them, and they're here and willing to, not many officers are sitting here at 10 to 9 of an evening, but they're here because they actually care. People don't come into local government for the money, otherwise we'd be crackers, but they come because they want to make a difference. And at this point in time, the difference is getting through this all together. So an enormous thank you. Please, let's keep talking. And with your permission, Chair, unless you need me for anything else, I shall let you all carry on the meeting. And Eva, dobranoc.
Thank you, Jason. Okay, do we have any comments or recommendation for Cabinet then, panel? Can I ask Mike and Shane to summarise for us, please?
Thank you, Chair. I know Teresa had a couple of things she wanted to bring in, but if I can just quickly talk down some of the notes that we've taken. I think it's been a real interesting meeting, and I think there's been a lot of issues that have been raised individually by the businesses. I think having the officers here to take those on board has been brilliant. In terms of those issues that have been raised, I think what I was going to suggest was that we provide Cabinet with a briefing note raising the concerns of the businesses that have been raised, and those are in relation to all of those issues that have been discussed tonight. So sole traders, which businesses can stay open, the communication and the interaction of businesses, including the business group forums that have been raised by our businesses that have come along tonight. Some of the actual more targeted suggestions, which I'm sure Teresa and her team have taken on board, are obviously issues that we'll have to take away and look into in more detail. Those regarding parking, I think the shop recognition scheme, which already formed part of a recommendation that has already gone to Cabinet to consider those issues. So to summarise from our point of view, Chair, I think it's that briefing note to Cabinet. We will pull together all of those issues that have been flagged up by the businesses. So Cabinet and our senior management team have those issues in a succinct document that they can take away and consider. The other issues that obviously focusing in on was particularly that targeted support to small businesses and sole traders. And obviously Teresa has already updated us in terms of the discretionary grant, and they are currently working around the clock to look at how that can best be used to utilise to support those small businesses and those small sole traders. I think the final bits that I've got, and I appreciate that these are not distinct recommendations, but will form part of the wider document that we will send to Cabinet, obviously include the health and well-being aspect and the food banks. And I think that is obviously plays a huge part for businesses, for the community, I think, you know, what we also need to remember is a lot of these businesses, even though they're struggling themselves, are contributing massively to local action within the community to try and ensure that those high streets remain safe, remain open, and people are ably assisted. So that's what I've got, Chair. I think, you know, we will pull that together, work with Teresa, Christine and Paul in ensuring that we capture everything that's been raised by those businesses that have given their time tonight for Cabinet to give some further consideration to.
Thank you very much, Mike. I'd like to suggest as well that it was something that Councillor Blagdon raised before, which was to do with the hand sanitizer at ticket machines in council-run car parks. That we continue progress on that. So maybe we'll word something up to that extent. But is there anything else, any other recommendations as of the meeting? Teresa?
I think we've got Teresa. Sorry, Chair.
Yeah, that's brilliant, Mike. Okay.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for that summary, Mike, and that would be really useful, and I'd like that to be turned in from an officer point of view into an action plan so we don't lose some of the key things this evening. I think what's been really clear is the passion from the local businesses, and I would really like to use some of that passion and also the good practice that we've heard tonight and use some of those as case studies. So one of the things that you've talked about is communication and how we get that message out there, and recognising and thanking you businesses for doing that. And I think if you're open to that, I'd like to speak to you all to see if we can maybe produce some case studies that we can use through our communications team to showcase the businesses and the good practice that you're doing. And hopefully that will spur others on, particularly around the COVID safe stuff. Wow, you know, some of you businesses, what you're doing out there is just fantastic, and it just needs showcasing, and it's just a trick that we're missing at the moment. So I'd like to make that recommendation. So I think communication and case studies is quite clear. So the other things is, Mike, that you've already touched on that I've got down as keynotes is the health and wellbeing agenda, the crime agenda. I'd like both of those fed into the recovery plan. Probably something that we need to take a bit step further now. So whilst the previous meeting and Cabinet have agreed the economic recovery plan, I'd like them to feature in there, and how we can give confidence and how we're going to put some recommendations forward on that. And also I think Sarah's given us some confidence around the Towns Fund, linking the Towns Fund and the potential capital investment that we're having into our town centres. I would like to link that to the forums that's been suggested. We have got some forums at the moment, but there'll be an opportunity as part of the consultation to look at the Towns Fund and how we can look at the recovery plan together, so that we're not consulting the same people on lots of different items. So I'd like to give some consideration into that, and maybe make that a recommendation as part of your report, Mike. Thank you. And again, I'd like to thank all the businesses. Yeah, it's been quite heartwarming this evening listening to all the good work and the best practice that you're doing out there. So thank you very much on behalf of the council.
Thank you, Teresa. I'm sure those last few words were sort of music to the ears of Ray O'Connor, because it's something he's been saying for years. So thank you, Teresa. Is there any other recommendations that panel members or anyone else would like to make to Cabinet?
We've got no one from the panel, Chair, but I know Sam Handley, one of the Sarah with the business, wants to come in.
Hi, Sam. You all right? Thank you.
Hi, I'm sorry. I know I'm being quite vocal, but I personally will make the most of an opportunity. I think there's a thing here in terms of PPE and either tax relief or reimbursement or something. You know, like I said, £85,000 on keeping people safe. We pride ourselves in making sure that we give people the masks and the sanitizer and everything else. I don't know, we can't get R&D or anything like that on it, but there must be something to offset it with, or I don't know what it looks like. But if we could do something like that, then we could almost pass that saving back into the council again, to make sure that it's a win for the employees keeping people safe, a win for the businesses, and it's a win for the council. I don't know what it's like, and I can't solution here, but I do think it needs to make the table. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Si. I appreciate that, and totally agree. I'd like to just add something, and I'm sure Councillor Grounds agrees with me, but to look towards a sort of recognition scheme for best practice. As you quite rightly said earlier before, Sam, you know, people don't say thank you a lot, and it's something that that you know we would like to do as a panel. So I'd certainly like to see that as a suggestion to go towards Cabinet. So that we can make progression, so that when we meet in December, after the Cabinet have met, we can start putting concrete plans together to do something, and how that might look like. Is that all right? Does that sound okay with you, Dale?
Yeah, you took the words straight out of my mouth there, Chairman. But also, I'd like to recommend that we have more meetings like this with businesses from around the districts. I think it's been very, very good tonight.
Yeah, I think that what we said at the start of this process, when we set up 4 meetings ago, was that it was absolutely critical that we weren't talking to our sens, and you know, and it's, you know, we need to listen in the same way that we invited members of the public to a previous meeting and answered their questions. And yeah, I would certainly like to we'll take that.
Even after COVID as well, to carry it on. Keep on.
Yeah, I mean, it's you know, we may look at a sort of more thematic side rather than a general side. So you know, it might look, for example, at crime and antisocial behaviour issues, and how that impacts regeneration and the fight for COVID recovery. It might be looking at the markets, for example, you know, things like that. But certainly, yeah, that's something that you know, we will need to look at. So is everyone satisfied with that? Is there anyone else that would like to make any comments? Are you itching your head, Mike? Or
no.
Right.
So Chair, obviously, just to add a little bit of clarity in terms of what we're putting forward, it's the briefing note to Cabinet raising the concerns of the businesses. We will also include a recommendation that we utilise the businesses that we have got contact with, and some of those good case studies to show best practice. We include the health and wellbeing agenda and the crime agendas as part of consideration of the recovery plan, and that linking the Towns Fund to those forums as part of that consideration of the recovery plan is also there. I think within the body of the briefing note as well, and obviously this will take some further consideration, I would suspect, before it becomes anything close to a recommendation. But I do think it's an important point that's been raised about the PPE, and for that to be considered as part of the wider longer term issues that are being considered by this panel. So obviously, in terms of distinct recommendations, Chair, obviously we need to ensure that, you know, we've considered what grant funding is available, looking at the conditions of that, looking at the financial aspects of that. So I think we can ensure that those issues that have been flagged up have been raised. So we'd be looking for a show of hands for those recommendations that I've just mentioned. And before we do that, Chair, just let the business members know this panel is meeting on a monthly basis. So it is a longer term panel of the council. It will be liaising with businesses. It's not a one stop where we've got one chance to put recommendations or comments forward to Cabinet or to our senior management team. It is an ongoing process, and some of those ideas that start small here may need some fleshing out, but that's what we're here to do. That's what Teresa, Ruth, Christine and Paul are here to do, is to take back those ideas and get them worked up if they're a viable option, and take those forward. So yeah, what we're looking for here is a show of hands.
I'd like to propose the recommendations to Cabinet. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Blagdon? Yeah, Councillor Blagdon second. So all those in favour, please indicate. Okay. I'm trying to multitask here, which is not my...
So we have everyone is in favour, apart from we've not got no camera from Councillor Austin's chair.
Okay, well, that's clearly carried anyway. So thank you very much, everyone. And I think that what Mike was trying to say is absolutely right, that, you know, it's not going to be a wasted bonfire night for you. You know, this is the start of a process, and we are determined as a council to listen. You know, too many councils think they know what people want, and we believe that we should liaise and we should consult as widely as possible. So thank you to everyone. I'd like to thank you for your participation in tonight's meeting. As I say, it's critical as a council we positively engage with businesses across our district, and I'd like to thank our 6 business representatives for their invaluable insight. If any of the guests would like to leave the meeting as we move on, then please feel free. It's pretty boring after this, actually. There's only one item left, so it's not particularly interesting. Certainly not for yourselves, anyway. Furthermore, please be assured that the panel will continue to work with businesses beyond the process, and we'll be delighted to keep you updated in future meetings, and we will keep you updated with the briefing note that we've agreed. We'll make sure that you receive a copy of that to make sure that it accurately reflects the discussion tonight. So thank you very much, everyone. Really appreciate that. So, and it's going to be quick this, actually, because there's not a lot to report. We're going to move on to agenda item number 6, which is local government reorganisation. As you know, panel, this is a standing item on our agenda. Can I ask Ruth whether there's any updates for the panel to consider in relation to local government reorganisation?
Thank you, Chair. As you say, I think it may be fairly swift, this little bit of the agenda. Members will all be aware that Nottinghamshire wasn't put forward as part of the first phase of reorganisation. So as a result of that, things are not progressing as swiftly as potentially they might have been if Nottinghamshire had been selected. So things are essentially a little bit on hold, but obviously what the chief execs across the county have done is continue to have some dialogue around a longer term view in relation to reorganisation. And my understanding from Carol is that there was a conversation earlier this week where they have collectively decided to contact some other authorities who are in a similar position to us, or potentially are going forward as a phase 1 approach, really to just find some learning out and to understand what others are doing, really, as I say, as an information gathering exercise. There is consideration in relation to potential consultative work being undertaken as part of that. But Carol, it was quite at pains to make sure that I made you all aware that none of that will be taken forward from a monetary point of view or a commissioning point of view without obviously speaking to the leader and to obviously the wider political sphere before that's done. So I think at the moment it's just very much an information gathering exercise that the chief execs are continuing to do, but nothing more substantive than that, Chair.
Okay, thank you, Ruth. Is there? I mean, the one thing that I've drawn from tonight's meeting is almost the power of local. You know, a lot of what we were talking about tonight wouldn't have happened if services were run from West Bridgford, and you know, it just re-emphasises the whole argument that, you know, it's so important that we retain our council. Is there any members that would like to speak on this? Dale? Councillor Grounds?
No, Chair.
Okay, Councillor Blagdon?
No, Chair.
Okay, Councillor Smallridge?
No, nothing on this one, thank you.
Okay, Councillor Wilkinson?
No, Chair.
Okay, Councillor Dave Shaw?
No, Chair, thank you.
Okay, Councillor Kevin Rostance? Is that he's having his tea there, I think? Or is that
I am having my tea, yeah.
Is that treacle toffee, Kev?
Peaches and ice cream, David. No, I'm okay, thank you.
You're okay. Thank you very much. Just in terms of the next meeting, one of the things that struck me tonight, and it was something I've been thinking of for a while, because was the effect on key services like the police, and I thought maybe at the next meeting we might touch on this and maybe invite Inspector Dixon and a member of the CPO team to come to the panel and to discuss what they've been doing in terms and the challenges that they face. I don't know if anyone agrees or disagrees with that. Would you allow us to fire out some invites, and we'll see how it goes. Unfortunately tonight, Jonathan Gribbin, for obvious reasons, he's the Director of Public Health, he wasn't able to attend due to, say, it's fairly obvious why he was so busy. We will repeat the invite for the next meeting to him. So if we're all done, I'd like to thank Democratic Services. I'd like to thank Mike. I'd like to thank Lynn. I'd like to thank Shane for their sterling work. I'd like to thank, as I say, you all for coming tonight. And it's nice to see Councillor Dave Walters popping his head in as well. Hi, Dave. You're right. I'd like to thank you for your participation, and I'll now close the meeting. Thank you very much, panel.